Yes, you have come across yet another edition of Inside Town Hall. I'm still Jim Cameron, and I'm still your host, and still the program director of Darien TV 79, going on 14 years now. I'll get it right one of these days. Inside Town Hall, as you, our faithful viewers, know, is a show where we interview the folks that help run town government. And our guest today on the program is Bobby Bush. Bobby is our fire marshal. Bobby, you're inside Town Hall, so welcome to Inside Town Hall.
Thank you, Jim. How are you today?
I'm great.
Excellent.
So before we talk about your work, I'd like to, introduce you to folks. People may have seen you at various Board of Selectmen meetings and things like that. But so what's your background? How long have you, been in this job? What was your education?
So I have been in the fire service for almost 43 years. I came to work in the town in 1985 as the first full-time fire inspector. Became certified by the state of Connecticut as a fire marshal in 1986 and have maintained my certification ever since. The state requires that you receive 90 hours of credit every 3 years to maintain your certification. So that's an ongoing educational so that you keep current with everything. So in 1996, my predecessor retired, Harry Audley, and I was promoted to fire marshal. So I've been fire marshal ever since.
Wow. And how big is the fire marshal's office? How many folks on your team?
So we currently have 3 full-time certified staff and 3 part-time certified staff, one of which is also fire inspector and serves as the blight prevention officer. And then we have a full-time office administrator.
And we're going to talk about some of the things that you do as the fire marshal. But in a general sense, are you trying to figure out why fires have happened, or are you trying to prevent them from happening in the first place?
We do both. Part of our job is, once the fires occurred, to try and determine the origin and the cause of the fire, as to what may have happened. Was it accidental? Was it intentional? Was it from a malfunction of some type of appliance? And then the insurance companies also get involved a lot of times in the investigation because they'll look to subrogate if they think they can recoup their loss because it was subrogate to go after a manufacturer of a product if they determine that it was a defective product or a malfunctioning product. They can then go after them to get their money back to recoup their loss for what they have paid out.
Are there a lot of fires in Darien?
We have our share of them. I want to say we're pretty fortunate. Most of our homes are well protected by early warning fire detection systems, as are a lot of our commercial establishments. So a lot of the fires that we get are caught early on. So they tend to be a lot smaller than in some of the cities that you'll see because they don't have early warning detection in a lot of older buildings.
So you're going to remind us, I'm sure, about the importance of having our smoke detectors working and changing the batteries twice a year.
Change your batteries twice a year, and also carbon monoxide detectors, because if you have a problem with an appliance that could produce carbon monoxide in the home, it's a colorless, odorless gas. So you don't know that there's a problem until it's too late, unless the alarm goes off.
And you will fall asleep and not wake up if this carbon monoxide gets too high, right?
That is exactly what happens.
Right. And are carbon monoxides and smoke detectors required by law, by code in Darien?
They are required in all new buildings for residential homes. Anytime there's renovations done in a residential home, you're required to update to codes, whatever areas of the home are being renovated. Commercial buildings, depending on the size, may just require a fire alarm system, may require a fire sprinkler system to be installed. The new developments in town are all being built with early warning fire detection and fire sprinkler systems in them, including in the apartment units themselves, so that in the event of a fire, the fire sprinkler will go off and hopefully keep the fire in check and small enough until the fire department gets there to either extinguish it or just clean up what little mess there was.
But sprinkler systems are not required in residences,
They are not required.
single family homes.
Correct. They are not required yet by code in Connecticut.
Is anybody putting them in just as a
They
safety
are.
measure?
We have a couple of developments in town. Up on Three Wells Lane, they were all those homes there when they were built, the subdivision approval, the developer at the time, the water company could not provide water to that area of town. So the developer proposed that he install residential fire sprinkler systems in those homes. So all the homes up on Three Wells are protected by a fire sprinkler system. There's one of the condominium complexes across from Goodwife Shopping Center has a fire sprinkler system in it, to protect, each individual units there.
And do sprinkler systems need to be inspected and tested as well?
They do. They need to be inspected on a quarterly basis. The licensed contractor comes out, goes through the system, checks the necessary things that need to be checked on it. And then at times there are testing that needs to be done on it. And then in the long term, over many years, there are sprinkler heads that will need to be removed, tested. And if they pass the test, they can stay in. But if, they find a percentage that fails, they have to replace all the sprinklers in the building. But that's like at a 50-year lifespan. So,
Yeah. Darien has 3 volunteer fire departments. Do they answer to you as the fire marshal?
they do not. We are completely separate. Each fire department has its own fire chief. They have their own operation, and my job is completely separate from the fire departments. I don't oversee them. I am there to do the fire investigations, inspections. We do public education programs, but we are not in charge of the volunteers.
I'm not going to ask you your opinion of the fire departments, but you know, if there is a fire and they're lucky enough to, well, professional enough to put that fire out, you have to go in and do an inspection about what caused the fire. Do you ever give them kind of a post-action analysis of how they fought the fire? Did they suppress it quickly enough? Did they miss something?
Yeah, if anybody ever wanted to know, but the volunteer fire service in this town is highly qualified. They are trained to the same level as a career fire department is. So, what we do, the only thing that sets us different from a career fire department is the response time, because in a career department, fire department is always manned, and a volunteer, the stations are not manned 24 hours a day. So it takes the time for firefighters to get to the station and then in turn get to the call.
Bobby Bush is our guest today on the program, the show being, of course, Inside Town Hall. Bobby is the Darien Fire Marshal. Bobby, one of the things that you're hearing a lot about in the city is fires that are caused by lithium batteries in scooters and skateboards and things like that. Has that become a problem in Darien? Because those batteries are really difficult to extinguish if they catch fire, are they not?
They are very dangerous. They're continuously heating when they start to burn, and the reaction that goes on causes the fire to burn hotter and higher. We fortunately have not had a rash of incidents involving lithium batteries. And I, honestly think that there's going to come a time and it's going to begin to happen. We're going to see it here as well.
If somebody is watching and they have a kid who has one of those batteries in one of those powered skateboards or something like that, what can they do to make sure that it's going to be charging safely?
Always use the proper, the cord and the charger that was sold with the unit. They're matched up so that, they're supposed to be the listed unit that goes with it. It's sold as a full component. And when you charge it, don't put it in an area where it can obstruct your egress out of the house, by the front door, back door, whatever, so that it doesn't become a danger, because when they do catch fire, it starts to burn. And again, it burns very fast and very hot. So it starts to, you have a very fast burning fire.
Should they charge them outside? Should they be charged on a separate circuit?
They can definitely be charged outside is a much preferred method, or in a separate room where they can be contained. On a separate circuit, it's kind of tough to dedicate, they'd have to have an electrician dedicate a circuit to it in a separate area, but to do that.
When you're doing an inspection, and I imagine people could, if they wanted, or they could ask you to come and take a look at their home, not just their business, and say, could you just kind of walk through the house and see if there's anything that's, obvious? One of the things that I think people may not realize is that their electric circuits, may not be adequate for the demand that they're placing on them. And electrical fires are one of the ways that fires often start, are they not?
Yep. It can be from faulty equipment. It could be from overloaded electrical outlets or electrical circuits, improper use of extension cords. So we will happily come out if somebody has a question or concern at their home. We will come out and look and go through the home with them and, offer our suggestions to make things safer for them.
Beyond the usual, obvious pile of oily rags or something in the garage, you're not supposed to do that, I'm told. Those things self-combust, right?
Yep. If it's got the mineral oils in it, you can start to self-combust, spontaneous combustion.
I've been watching too much of This Old House. I think I picked up on that one as well too. I want to talk about some of the things that you do beyond the obvious that we were just kind of describing. But one of the things that's keeping you very busy these days, and we're recording this show in early February of 2023, are all the new developments that are going on in town. Because the ones that include residences, I'm told, you not only have to kind of look at the building, you have to look at every single one of those apartments. Is that correct?
That's correct. So during the construction process, we are out there and we work very closely with the building official and the contractors on the site, inspecting everything that is being built, as well as what people don't see once they move in. What's behind the walls, the wiring, the fire stopping that is used to hopefully prevent any fire from spreading from within the space where it occurs, as well as the apartments. And then once everything is inspected and their certificate of occupancy is issued, we are responsible by law to inspect all of the apartments on an annual basis.
Every year, you got to go in and look at each one of those new apartments. How many apartments are there that you're going to be having to take care of?
When all is said and done with these 3 developments and what we currently have in town, we're going to be over 1,200 apartments. And that's everything that's so far that is proposed and approved.
1,200 apartments.
Yep. 1,200 apartments.
And you've got what, 3 inspectors, including yourself?
3 full-time and 3 part-time, including myself.
And if I'm not mistaken, as the budget process is now underway, I think you're asking for some additional manpower, are you not?
We are asking to convert one of the part-time positions to a full-time position. This current fiscal year, we did convert a part-time position to another full-time position. So it will hopefully give us 4 full-time certified staff. And then depending on what goes on with other proposed developments, there may be another need for convert another part-time to a full-time position in the office.
And does it hurt your fire inspection work to have one of your people have to be chasing around after, the blight ordinance violators?
It takes about 50% of his time. So when we, determine our needs for staffing needs for hours, hours available and hours needed for inspection work and investigations and other things that occur, That's factored in there. So that's, factored in for what we need in terms of staffing.
And you also have to inspect the new retail establishments that are going to be in these developments too, right?
Yes. Some of them are required to be done once a year. Some are every 3 years.
And
Yes.
do these residences, these apartments, and do the retail folks know when you're coming, or do you just kind of show up and surprise
We
them?
try to schedule it, especially in the apartments, because, everybody's not home every day. So we try to work with the management company or whoever to get it scheduled and try to do is, multiple units at a time as we can. And the retails, we usually try to give them a heads up, or the office, just as a courtesy, so that you're not just showing up and, the business owner or whatever may not know who you are and may start to question, what are you doing here? So we like to let them know that, we're coming, and we're not here to be punitive when we inspect. We're here to prevent fires, and we're hoping that we can give a little bit of education while we're doing our inspection to point out things that aren't wrong, that could cause a fire, or that are, a code violation that need to be corrected.
I was at a restaurant in Darien, which will remain nameless, and has since closed, and was enjoying a meal and went off to the washroom. And as I was returning from the washroom, I noticed that the fire exit at the back was blocked. There was a bunch of boxes and stuff there. And I went over and said to the manager, the fire exit in the back there is blocked. And you may not have met him yet, but we have a rather thorough and aggressive fire marshal in town who I'm sure would not approve of that sort of thing. I wasn't trying to squeal on him as much as to say, hey, if there's a fire, if the kitchen catches on fire and people start to try to get out of this building, it's not going to be a pretty scene.
Right.
So is that the sort of thing that, do you need help with that? I mean, if people see something like that, in addition to, talking to the management, should they call you, let you know?
They can absolutely call my office. We're happy to go out and check on it again and follow up with the business if there was an issue, and just to let them know that, this is, somebody spotted it. And the reason we want to keep the exits clear is that in the event something happens, people, tend to panic when they see smoke or fire, and they're heading for the quickest way out. And a lot of times, people are creatures of habit, and the only thing they remember is the way they got in. So,
and they can't all get out the front door.
Can't all get out the front door. And, I try to tell people, when you go to an unfamiliar place, whether it's a restaurant, a theater, or, even a store, look around, see if you can find another way out of there. See if there's a second exit, so that if something should happen, that you have another way to go.
The health department, when they do inspections, publish their results. Do you also publish your results?
We do not. We don't use a scoring system of sorts. And I think theirs is geared towards, people choosing what and where they want to eat. Most of our buildings, we don't have serious violations. In the event that we did, we would have to go through a process to either, have the building evacuated, the business closed until the violations could be corrected. But in my years here, we've never had to do that to a business in Darien.
Bobby Bush, our guest today on the program, he is Darien's fire marshal. And I was looking on the town website, which, by the way, folks, is a wealth of information about all that's going on in town. Yeah, if you're having a quiet day, just start scrolling through, and you'll get lost down several rabbit holes. But one of the things that was on the list was some of the other duties aside from trying to prevent fires from happening. You also are responsible for issuing blasting permits. What's the thinking behind that?
So during construction, sometimes we have a lot of ledge around this area. And during construction, if they find the ledge, they're going to have to, there's, generally two ways to get rid of it. Either you blast, or you use a process called hoe ramming, which is very long and tedious and loud. The blasting, depending on the amount of rock that that's there and the amount of work that's being done, could be done in a couple of days, or it could last for a couple of months. So we are responsible by state statute to issue blasting permits. We have to ensure that the blaster is properly licensed, that what he's bringing the blasting stuff in with is properly stored, and we do check on the sites to ensure that he's following the regulations, and to speak with the residents if anybody's uncertain or unsure of it, because blasting is not like growing up the cartoons that we all used to see of everything is a huge explosion and stuff is flying everywhere. They properly protect the rock. They use these heavy steel mats that go over them, so it keeps the sound is muffled and everything stays under the mat. There is a rare occasion where rock does fly, and there's an investigation that needs to be done for what caused it, what happened. But it's extremely rare, and the damage from blasting is very rare.
Another one of the things that you're involved with, and I'm not sure what the status is for this year, but the annual fireworks display. There were a few years there where we weren't doing fireworks because the high school was under construction, or there was concern about the turf fields, etc. What are the considerations that you're looking at when you're deciding, can we hold fireworks this year, and can we do it at location X?
So the decision is, do we have the area, safe area for the viewing area for everybody to watch? There's regulations required, depending on the size of the fireworks shell itself that is used, the distance away from the audience that they have to be. The smallest shell, some of the really small stuff is like 200 feet, but as it grows in size, it goes up to 300 feet, in excess of 1,200 feet. We don't shoot anything that large in town for our fireworks display. It's generally 3 and 4 inch shells, which keep the audience is closer to where the shooting is done, where the fireworks are shot from. And it also allows us to use the high school site for fireworks.
Are you concerned, as maybe the police department would be, in terms of how people are going to get in, how people are going to get out, crowd control, things like that?
We do, and we work well with the police department when we talk about the plan, and pretty much for the fireworks at the high school, the show at the high school, it's a plan that's been in place for many years, even under the old high school, with the traffic flow in and out. And once the show is over, it empties out very quick, and the police do a great job of moving the cars along and the pedestrians walking. But we're concerned with where people are, and while the show is being set up, people don't realize that, they just think they could walk up and see what's going on, and we still have to maintain that safe distance from the time the fireworks get there until after the show is over and the area has been searched to make sure there are no other live shells.
Because some shells may not, detonate, or
they may not have gone
sitting
off
in their canister or something.
Yep. So they have to check all the tubes that they shoot from to make sure everything went off. And if it didn't go off, they pull everything apart, and they will then shoot those because they don't want to leave the site with unshot fireworks.
Good thinking. Is it legal to sell fireworks in Connecticut?
There is a very limit, and they're basically sparklers that are allowed in Connecticut. The larger aerial display devices, even the bottle rockets, you are not legal in Connecticut.
Moving down this hit parade of potential terror, you have to inspect flammable liquid tanks. What are those?
So fuel tanks that are installed, gasoline tanks, propane tanks, and heating oil tanks. Gas stations have to replace their tanks, based on the lifespan of the tank. Propane tank installations, natural gas installations and home heating oil or commercial heating oil tanks.
But if my home had a generator and had a propane tank outside to fuel the generator, would that be something you'd have to inspect as well?
That is generally inspected by the building department because it's a single family home, and they're normally out there for other stuff. So they're doing the smaller, smaller projects like that.
Right. Tank removals. Friend of mine discovered that his oil tank in his basement is leaking, and he's going to have it removed. Do you get involved with that as well?
We do. We will go out. If it's a leaking tank, we're notified, as well as the state DEEP, Department of Environmental Emergency Services. They have a spill division. They come out and they, give the homeowner the list of contractors to use to clean up the spill. On a routine tank removal as a preventative maintenance or for a construction project, we are not out overseeing the removal, but we do require the permit and that the soil samples be taken to ensure that there is no contamination in the ground.
And if it's an in-ground tank and it has to be removed, similar,
right? So we on an in-ground tank, we want to make sure that there's no contamination in the ground. And like a tank in the basement that is removed for just the sake of removing it, there's no soil that needs to be sampled to make sure that the area is clean.
right? That can be an expensive proposition, I guess, right?
If the tank is leaking, yes.
Right. So we mentioned that you inspect residential properties, but you also have to certify nursing homes, convalescent centers, and assisted living facilities, of which there are several in town, right?
Yes, we have 3 assisted living facilities in town. We inspect those on an annual basis, and we also inspect within the living units there to ensure that the smoke detectors work in units. We don't have potential hoarding issues. We don't have emergency egress windows that are obstructed, and to ensure that the doors within the units will automatically close and latch to prevent the spread of fire or smoke from out of the unit or into the unit.
And I guess if people are elderly and mobility impaired, first of all, they'd be frightened if there was a fire. But are there other considerations of making sure they can get out of the building safely beyond what they'd see in, a condo or something?
They're all protected by early warning detection, smoke detection, in the hallways, any hazardous areas, and within their living units themselves, they all have smoke detection and they all have fire sprinkler systems.
When I was back in school a million years ago, we used to have fire drills. Do they still do those in the Darien schools? Do they do them in commercial buildings? Do they test the alarms?
The schools still do fire drills. They're required by law to do fire drills at least once a month, in addition to the lockdown type drills that they're required to do now. Commercial buildings, they don't. Most of the offices are not required to do fire drills until they get to a certain number of occupants within a building. So there's a couple that do them, but not a large percentage do not have to do them.
Do they have to test the alarms?
They have to test their alarms. Their alarm systems are required to be inspected and tested once a year.
The last thing on the hit parade of your very busy office was a surprise to me, and that was liquor permits. Why do you care about stores that are selling liquor?
So it's the restaurants actually that we have to inspect once a year, and we have to certify to the state for consumer protection that it is premises safe to serve liquor, that it meets the fire code. So that they require that annually the fire marshal sign off prior to renewing their liquor license.
This is because I was going to say this is because they assume that patrons might be inebriated and have trouble finding their way out if there was a fire.
Yeah, that's part of the reason. Going back many, many years of, several fatal fires in places of public assembly. And where, alcohol was served.
Right. Well, speaking of which, I mean, when you go into a movie theater, there's always an announcement about where the exits are located. When there's an event at the high school in the auditorium, they usually make some reference as well too. And it's usually rather perfunctory. It's like, okay, I got to read this. I got to get this out of the way before the show starts. But you were saying, I think earlier, that's something to pay attention to.
Yeah. It's, and a lot of times people just tune out what's being told to them when they're at a place of assembly, a theater, or, a large gathering, whatever. They're just trying to make everybody aware that there are multiple ways to get out of where you are. Don't just consider the way you got in. Look around and, be aware of your surroundings.
Hear, hear. Well, we have covered the gamut, I think. Have we missed anything among your many responsibilities, your duties, and the things that keep you and your staff so busy?
I mean, I could go on and
Aside
on
from
about
doing
what we do
interviews with the town TV station. Public education. I mean, you mentioned that. How do you do public education?
We do a lot of our public education programs is for the preschool children that we do. We try to catch all of the preschools in town annually. We're starting to get back from 2020 with COVID. We all those programs stopped, and now that we're starting to come back and get involved doing those again in the preschools. We also do programs and talks at the senior center. We'll speak with residents at the assisted living facilities, businesses. We've done fire extinguisher training for different establishments, and so we do a lot of different things, and how to do fire drills. And
great. And you mentioned that you will, as your schedule allows, entertain the option of people inviting you into their homes to do a quick walkthrough and check things out as well too. I'll put your office contact information in the credits to the program momentarily. Bobby Bush, our guest today on the program, he is Darien's fire marshal for how many years now?
I've been the fire marshal for a little over 26 years, and I've been in the fire marshal's office for almost 38 years.
I guess you like your work, huh?
Love coming to work every day.
That's the spirit. I appreciate it. Bobby, thank you so much for being with us on the program. A lot of good information in there, and you have just ticked the box on your public education campaign for this year by being on our program.
Thanks, Jim.
A pleasure. And thank you, our viewers. I hope you were taking notes. There will be a quiz. Thank you for watching yet another edition of Inside Town Hall.